Now, tonight, we're going to go into some of these popular diet plans because I say that because there's a lot of confusion. So we're going to camp out here just for a few minutes because we really want everyone to understand the difference between these four plans: Mediterranean, ketogenic, paleo, vegan, and we're going to throw one more in there, the HCG diet. Has anyone heard of that one? Okay, I'll explain what that is in a minute. Probably the most data out there in regard to research papers when we include diet that has the most efficacy behind it is going to be the Mediterranean. Now, the Mediterranean diet is really pretty easy to understand in the sense that it's mostly a lot of plants, it's a lot of fruits, it's a lot of beans, grains, lentils, fish, a lot of oils, avocados, etc. It has some benefits because obviously these are natural foods, right? The only liability with that is it is a Mediterranean. We live in a non-Mediterranean environment. So part of a Mediterranean diet being the grains, corn, and soy are not edible and suitable for eating in America right now because of American processing methods. One little tidbit of note on that. Those three crops are all sprayed with Roundup in their preparation method. Because of that, Roundup has something called glyphosate as an ingredient in there. It's an active ingredient that kills the actual weeds. The seeds have been modified to avoid that in those crops. So it makes sense to produce a very high yield, correct? Everybody with me so far? So unfortunately, glyphosate, can someone grab them a couple chairs over here too? Someone? Yeah. So glyphosate is going to be something that is a carcinogen. Would that be a problem? Yes. The liver doesn't manage it. It causes tissue damage. It also binds to a glycine receptor in our brain, producing end result of high anxiety, high worry, burden, fear, even paranoia. People that do stupid things these days that are unheard of in classes of evil are not snacking on salads, are they? They're eating this kind of stuff that binds to the glycine receptors. So we must understand that these glycine binders, they damage DNA, and it does lend itself to depression. How many people are on antidepressants these days? So a Mediterranean diet, there is a lot of efficacy behind it if we were totally in the Mediterranean. But in America, we have those problems with the grains, corn, and soy. Okay? Now let's go into the ketogenic because that is probably the most popular one out there. Every time we talk about this, man, people tune in. Now let me tell you what the ketogenic diet is from a historical standpoint. It was originally studied probably 100, 120 years ago in the research regarding sort of epileptics, you know, the seizures. So they found that when they put people on a ketogenic diet that had the tendency for seizures, the seizures went away. The frequency went away. Really cool, right? So what was this magic thing called the ketogenic diet? What was it that caused a lack of this big fire in the brain to go out? Really cool. They found that a higher fat, a very, very low carbohydrate, we're talking 5, no more than 7 or 8% of our macronutrients came from carbohydrates. And guess what? A little tiny bit of protein. Between 10 and no more than 20%, even if you were an athlete. That's the true traditional ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diets have a lot of benefit. They're anti-inflammatory for the body and the brain if done correctly. The downside is most of the time they're not done correctly. People throw a lot of what? Protein on there, and they eat this protein plus fat and they call that ketogenic diet. It's not. Additionally, it's easy to go over the course of time by eating fats because I know this is not real food fat, but you get the point. Each gram of this is worth 9 calories. Each gram of protein and carbohydrate is worth 4 calories. The amount of calories you take in when eating this stuff can go up very rapidly. If you go above and beyond the amount of calories that you are utilizing, the law of thermodynamics will take place. You will store more because you're not burning it. So it's very easy in a ill-designed ketogenic plan to go over the top of too many calories, get fat storage, and that stresses the body out by creating inflammation, and then you end up losing muscle tissue. Okay? So there's some good things and bad things. The good side of it, if it's done properly, you don't go over the caloric load and you are exercising, it can be a wonderful process, but it's really tightly controlled. That's the difference. Now let's fast forward to paleo.
Talk about lipids.
What's that?
Lipids.
Oh yeah, right. There are some people, genetically speaking, that have certain twists in their genes, and it's probably about a 20, maybe 25% of our population that absolutely cannot take in a lot of saturated fats. If they do, it will make their lipid particles that start off big get small. We're talking about cholesterol. We're talking about heart disease here. So people that are on a ketogenic plan, we always recommend, always, no matter what their weight's doing, no matter what they're doing, you got to get an advanced lipid panel. Are you getting atherogenic? Or in other words, are you getting plaque buildup in your arteries? Because if you are, is that a good thing? No, because heart disease is still the #1 killer of men and women today. And so we're not saying at all that the ketogenic plan is a cause of heart disease. We're saying an ill-designed ketogenic plan with a lot of protein, a lot of saturated fat in there is not ketogenic at all, and it's probably can yield some disease processes because people ignore what I say was less on that, the carbohydrates. Is a lack of vegetables and fruit a good thing? No, we still need those things. So you have to heavily supplement from the phytonutrient section to offset that lack in the ketogenic plan. Right? Does everyone get that? Now, paleo. Paleo is really all natural foods minus the grains. Good way to describe it. All natural foods, including all the keto fats, all the meats, everything, even plants, fruits, vegetables, etc., just not the grains. Now, it's a very good plan, but also we have to think about what Paleolithic can do. As stated in the previous style of dieting, we can go very, very high on the caloric load very quickly. We still have to keep a tight rein on that. In other words, if we're eating paleo and we're not exercising and we're taking in more calories than we're burning, are we going to store it? Yes, we are, exactly. So we have to keep that in mind. Now, Paleolithic can be very good because it's very natural. But again, just like we said earlier, if taking in a little bit of fat is good, does that mean that we can take in as much as we want? Because one of the misconceptions about ketogenic and Paleolithic, and I know you guys see the difference now. Remember, Paleolithic has more protein, more fat. It's more of a moderate, like a 30-30, 35 or 40-30 type of breakdown. Ketogenic is more of about a 65 to 70% fat, 20 to 25% or maybe 20% protein at the very most, and about 5 to 7 or 8% carbohydrates. So if you think about Paleolithic and keto, people mostly leave out, even in the way they do it, they leave out the fruits and vegetables. Okay? And obviously if we do that, that's not a good thing because we need those vitamins and minerals to sort of drive metabolic processes, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now the vegan, no meat. No meat. Is that healthy? Of course, some people would see benefit in all this. But vegans have a little challenge. They don't get enough B12, they don't get enough cysteine that comes from meat, and they don't get enough fatty acids that comes from fish. So if a person goes vegan, they will have to supplement in those areas. Otherwise, they will have metabolic issues. And lastly, just a point of note, there's something called the HCG diet. Has anyone heard of that? Some of you have. Human chorionic gonadotrophin is an injectable hormone-like substance that is used within a 500-calorie limited diet to provoke weight loss. Okay, now, would that promote weight loss because you're taking in 500 calories? Yes. Now, if we talk about what we talked about earlier, is weight loss the goal? We are not fans of the HCG protocol all the time, and certainly not even most of the time, because it can promote weight loss, and many times that weight loss comes from fat or from muscle tissue, which we don't want to have, right? It's too hard to gain muscle tissue back. The bottom line is all these plans are quite different as we see. We spent a little time camping here, but I wanted you to understand, we want you to understand what the difference is. All of them, exception of the last one, can be somewhat healthy if, and they can be somewhat beneficial if we take in natural foods and avoid processed foods. So that's really the kind of the return on the investment there, isn't it? Natural foods, avoiding processed foods. If we do that, we're going to get some benefit. Whatever plan you pick, you can be somewhat successful. It may not be ideal for you. That's where genetics come in to sort of tweak that thing out and make it unique and individual. but it will be something of a benefit for you by getting the junk out and putting the natural in.